Welcome to the Franchise Woman Podcast, where passion and purpose collide, profits are made, and relationships forged. I'm Rebecca Monet, CEO and Chief Scientist at Zoracle Profiles. I'm here with my co-host, community advocate, speaker, author, and entrepreneur, Tracy Kawa. Tracy, we have a wonderful guest today. Her name is Megan Allen. And Megan Allen is a seasoned franchising expert, and now she's the director of real estate and construction at the Dog Stop, an award-winning, all-inclusive dog care facility. Megan entered the franchise space when she was only 17. Her roles in franchising have spanned funding, financing, as well as executive leadership. With nearly 2 decades in the franchising industry, Megan combines business acumen with a passion for pets and community building. Her journey into franchising and passion for helping franchises be successful is a testament to her dedication and her expertise. So I'm looking forward to hearing some of that expertise coming out of your mouth, Megan. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited about it. I love doing podcasts and just sharing knowledge with our community. We have such a great franchise community.
We really do have an incredible community that have come together and help one another. So I'm going to jump right in, only because we have such a short time to actually talk. We may have to do 2 or 3 interviews. But my first question for you, Megan, is when you look at your life, can you see some kind of a thread or theme or philosophy that seems to run through your life?
Yeah, I kind of use the term service. I think serving others, knowing your stakeholders, knowing how to get a win-win result, but also because I've been largely in the service industry at all of my stops along this 20-year path. Starting day one with my dad in our business, helping people find financing to grow their business. That's a service, right? And so I've been really lucky to not only be a supplier, but also to be a franchisor for most of the time. And really, your stakeholder is, of course, people say, hey, it's your consumer, your end consumer. I kind of see it a little differently. I see it that my first and foremost, my service goes to my franchisees and their success, because if they are successful, truly, as they say in franchising, everybody wins. If the franchisees are happy, they reinvest, they continue to grow, and they continue to build their family's legacy. I just absolutely, it just, every ribbon cutting, it's like it's the first one, like I posted that the other day and I was like, it just never gets old, right? That you provided the service to give them the right amount of confidence and understanding of how to open a business for the first time and be an entrepreneur. And I've been blessed to be an entrepreneur in some capacity my entire life. So that's really, I think, the easiest term, service.
Service.
It sounds like you're really proud of the work you do.
I am. I mean, maybe to a fault, right? Where I put, I consider these franchisees investment like I'm putting my own money into it because I want them to get a return. I want them to be able to buy the building someday and grow, the valuation of their business. And I'm trying to think, the strategy of 10 moves down on the chessboard to protect them because they're coming in and believing in me too, right? So I want to make sure I protect that.
I like this others orientated self of you, where you're concerned about others' success and that they get what they need out of the business. But I'm curious, have you always been this way, or did you have a model of someone who was of service where you just sort of picked it up? How did that happen?
I think my mom and dad, but mostly my mom. I often think of her as the mayor of our HOA. If a neighbor was sick with cancer, she was a stay-at-home mom, but she did so much more community involvement. She was a runner and she would take stray dogs, that back in the 80s, 90s, there were stray dogs a lot. There weren't
Huh.
chips, there weren't vet chips, there weren't easy paths to get that dog back to its home. So my mother would take that on. And I remember thinking, I was like, it's so cool, Mom. And it was like a hound dog. It was howling in the garage or, something silly. And my dad would roll his eyes and I was like, but Dad, she's helping that dog. You know what I mean? So at an early age, I told her, I think she said at about 5 that I told her I wanted to be a dog mom, which has come very much true in my life as a theme. But I think that, and then my dad, being an entrepreneur and helping others, I worked with him from an early age, and he helped people find funding to grow their business, and that's a service, right? So there's the entrepreneur and the service side, and then my grandmother was the first to work for the EPA in Lincoln, Nebraska, so she was a real big service-oriented role model, and she helped farmers with soil conservancy. It was an interesting job. So I feel like my family being, from Nebraska and like a Midwest childhood, even though I am a Colorado native, I'm so glad because I love the CU Buffs and my parents are Huskers, but I digress. But no, I do think like that trust of my parents to raise me right, the golden rule, treat others the way you want to be treated. I think that's so important in franchising. And I think that's why I have such a depth of friendship and kinship with others like me in the franchise industry, especially the Women's Franchise Committee. I've been very supportive of that group. Um, we all are in it together, men, women alike, but I definitely want to help grow people in my own industry because just like, the kids are our future, the younger people in franchising are the future of our industry. And I'm not going anywhere. I want to stay in this it's been my love of my life is franchising.
That's interesting. What do you think is most needed today in franchising?
I think more transparency, I think would be nice. Hiding behind an FDD when really that's your best sales tool. And you shouldn't really have anything to hide in an FDD. I mean, there hasn't been a company I've worked with or for that I haven't said, hey, let's dig into this. Let's make sure we can make sure that this is right. Because at the end of the day, keeping your item 3 clear and, having good intentions and just other franchisees saying, yeah, they will give you an extra year to look for a site, but they have to have the franchise agreement be the same for everybody to treat everybody fairly. So I think those are themes that I've always enjoyed as well as, being able to say it, but then to give the addendum that gives you the extension if there's something that happens or, following it up with the legal side of it. I've really enjoyed that. I always joke, I'm like, well, I play a franchise attorney on TV, but I'm not one, but I understand the law really well. And people are like, oh, I was like, I'm not going to school for that long. You got to be kidding me. I'm just going to be here to be ethical and meet and exceed the expectations of franchisees so that they never feel like there has to be any kind of litigious relationship. And that really goes such a long way when incoming people come in and the franchisees literally say that and parrot your true heart, when they say, oh, yeah, they're not going to do that,
Yeah. Megan, as I'm listening to you, you're a straight shooter, right? I mean, I don't know how better to describe you. You're a straight shooter.
Thank you.
So how do other people perceive you? Do they perceive you that way, or how would they, describe you?
I think tough but fair, right? Like I'm going to call you privately. I'm not going to embarrass you, franchisee, in front of a vendor, or, I'm going to call you and go direct and have a critical conversation before it becomes ugly. I'm going to say, what are your plans for your income? Like you can't qualify for a loan without income. I know things change, but you do need to start, figuring that out, or you will not be able to open this business. The hard talk is also the most important points typically that others are afraid or they want to wait till your weekly call. And it's like, no, this can't wait. This is not something that can wait. And I have no business shaming someone because of something they couldn't control. People lose jobs. Plans change. There's life events. There's cancer. There's divorce. There's things that truly happen. And if you can't build a 10-year, 20, 30-year relationship by doing the right thing before they even open and have an SBA loan or they have debt service, I just think you're doing it wrong because that's a big family investment, not just their personal. I mean, this is a big decision for an entire group of people, and it changes the trajectory of the entire family's life. So, I've been so lucky to be in this for 20 years and see kids go off to school and get business degrees and come back and run their parents' business and do it maybe even better because they are more technology savvy. Or it's just such a cool, like, big picture thing is you do it right, and it continues to pay off for everybody that's involved because there was only truth.
Right.
White lies are okay sometimes, but not when you're spending $1 million to open a business and hope to get a return. That's not where you're going to put that category.
No, no.
Well, that brings up the subject of reputation, credibility. How important is all of that?
Priceless, because people will, now with social media too, people will look up your recommendations. People are going to look up on your social media. They're going to really get a feel for you before they even talk to you, or they're going to have some sort of predisposition of who you are and what you've posted, and what is your mottos, how do you speak, how do you bring truth to things. And so I think that one of my favorite blessings is that every stop of my career, I stay in touch with the franchisees I helped. It doesn't matter if I go to a competitor or whatever, they respect what I brought to them personally. So what a blessing, right? To have the reputation that people want to stay in touch with you. And I think that's all we have is our, reputation. It fills your cup. It really does. When someone calls you and is like, oh my God, you got a new pup, they're just looking for a reason to come to you and reconnect. I mean, I'm actually kind of glad my name's Megan Allen, by the way, because I'm the first in everybody's phone. So I get a lot of butt dials. Do you know what I do every time someone butt dials me? I call them and check in with them. I was like, well, since you called. And they're like, it was a butt dial. I was like, oh, so you don't want to talk to me. It's just this fun thing that I have in my life. And, I think it's just about like bringing humor into things, never taking light of things that are not humorous, but finding ways to, make that relationship stronger, or someone gets on a call and they're like, sorry, I haven't gotten back to you. I was like, what? You only have 100 emails. I mean, what are you thinking? I should be a priority, and I tease that stuff because I think people take it too seriously sometimes. And on the other side of being overachiever, right? And sometimes you just have to say, if I don't answer you in 24 hours, it's because I'm going through it and I got a lot of deadlines right now. Just text me if it's urgent. I have no problem with that. I mean, that's okay. It's okay for us all to be human and want an answer and be first in line.
Mhm. So you hit on this idea that it's about the relationship, that even when you leave an assignment, a job, a project, whatever it is, those relationships are forever in your mind.
Yes.
And in a world that has become more transactional, I think we really do need to highlight that because it really is about relationships, not just for our heart, but ultimately for business. Those relationships do count. So I'm
Yeah,
glad.
I mean, I even had a franchisee buy into another brand I was with because of me, and what I had learned about that other brand and how I embraced myself and kind of went full in, even as a contractor, fractional. It was my brand while I was there. I was going to make a difference, and I often did, and just being part of, early parts of like a swim school brand that sold to Rourke. I don't brag a lot about this stuff because I just feel like get in and do the job that you're being paid for, but then be proud of what you did, while you were there. It's really important.
It's always a great compliment when people follow us from one job to another or one, company to another. I think it speaks to probably your consistency and stability. Would you say that people think that you are very
Yeah.
consistent?
Mhm.
I'm there for people, and even if I'm like on vacation, I'll say, hey, I'm out of town. Let's connect next week. Will you shoot me a reminder email? I just give people the good direction on you're important. I do want to connect with you. And I
Yeah.
think that's as I've grown, as a leader and an executive, is to give myself grace, right? Like I can't be everywhere for everyone and put everybody first. Because then actually, if you really think about it, since I've done development most of my career and the service side of it, like the pre-opening side is where my focus has been, I'm kind of teeing up the rest of the corporate team, if you're, like I am now, a franchisor, to work nights and weekends. And that's not fair to a training person that's just getting into the business that, really is enthusiastic and may feel guilty or feel like they have to hit that same service level. That's not fair because I've been on both sides of that. Like, the more salespeople in general or development people spend trying to close a deal, it's a detriment to the rest of the team that just doesn't get paid as well or is in the newer phase of their development in their career.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a good message for everybody in the franchise community is remember what you're setting up for other people to have to emulate. It's very difficult to always have that same mindset, or should they?
Yeah. I think that's a really excellent point, Megan. And also it's interesting because when you're that service oriented,
Mhm.
it's not just for the prospective franchisee or the franchisee, but it's for our team members and thinking about what they're needing. But at the same time, you are good at respecting boundaries and having your own boundaries because when we're that service oriented, there's no doubt we can overdo, right? And we can
Oh,
burn out. Not we
I'm
don't
doing myself no favors or anybody else if I don't put
exactly.
boundaries down. And it's such a blessing as I grow. And I would say that like it's not just age as a number or any of that. As you grow from position to position, you learn what your weak points are. And if you can't be authentic enough with yourself, right, and honest enough, like, wow, I went way overboard with that and talk to your spouse or your best friend or say, man, I really regret that I called that person back at 8 o'clock. you know that's nonsense making. That's just silly waste, and it's just like I just put people in a position that they couldn't possibly win, and that's not who I want to be. I want to empower people and really, you know make them understand that I'm passing the torch to you. I've teed these people up to have most of their answers, but now you get to be the leader and not me.
Yeah.
I get to hand it the baton, as they say. And it's like, all right, shoot
It
your
is.
shot. You got this.
Okay. That made me think about pet peeves. I don't know if that's where you were going, Tracy, but
Yes.
what is your biggest pet peeve? Because you triggered one for me in just what you were saying. But what is your biggest pet peeve?
It really is that waste, but translated into being efficient, right? Getting yourself in a position that you really feel good you have the answer and it's not going to be disputed because you did your homework. If that means you send the email that someone was getting aggressive to me and when we do a quick call and I help you write the response and coach you, or you give me my preferred way would be for you to send me the email chain, have your answer, have like a break, right? It says, this is what I'd like to send, yes or no. Oh my God, it's just lights your heart up when it's professional and it's almost exactly what you would say, maybe just in their words, so it doesn't look like it was contrived or, you know what I mean, that an attorney wrote it or, something dramatic like that. I still remember these moments in the past 20 years where I'm like, you nailed it. You literally nailed it. And they're like, well, it's because you trained me properly. And, there's some butt kissing as to the boss in that sense, because it does make you feel good when you mentored someone and empowered them. But also when it's genuine and you feel like they really were trained by you to be able to handle that and deal with a franchisee instead of the franchisee going to mom and dad. the founder, copying emails to the founder of the dog stop, or, me and the founder, and we have the same answer, right? And we're just like, kind of like, well, that that could have been avoided. You just have to answer it sufficiently, and empower yourself.
Wow.
Whew.
It definitely sounds
Isn't it
like
great though when you see click-throughs of
Yeah,
people?
I can so relate to everything you're saying.
Yeah, it's
Okay,
so fun.
I want to hear about the dog stop. Tell me what you guys are up to. I know you got an interesting spin on things. Tell us more about the dog stop.
Yeah. Oh man, I jumped at the chance to get back into it. I had a good 9-year break, self-employed. I learned so much. Was a franchisee, so I had more perspective about, Canva and, like all of the things that are new, right? Rawlio, all these things that you can use to manage your business and put your own voice and tone into your business by also using the right graphics and, all of those. So I think at the end of the day, the dog stop does something really interesting. And when you think about our name, it's the one stop, right? It's the dog stop. And we are creating and curating a 5 revenue stream instead of just doing only one of the revenue streams. Like, we can be good at boarding, and that's where some of our competitors might just only focus, but that's seasonal, right? So what we're doing is we're trying to make daycare and grooming and boarding year round. Business travelers, right? Not just focusing on bank holidays or having franchisees have to become an expert on escrowing their boarding revenue and where to, how to pay their taxes and all that. We want it to be a full-time year-round business with the dog stop. And there's also a component. I mean, we have team members in Pittsburgh at our corporate office that know more about nutrition than for dog food than some humans know about human nutrition. And I learn something every day from the people I'm surrounded by that are so passionate about the dogs and their environment and, having outdoor play space, having the fight of the zoning and making sure we do it right. Because honestly, there's just so few competitors, especially, I mean, I would say mom and pops are probably our biggest competitor, but oftentimes they're not as polished, or they're just the only one that has availability, or so if we continue to grow the dog stop, which I'm seeing, and so gosh, I'm so excited about it, is I get to help more dogs. I get to have a legacy where you know tens of thousands of foster dogs go into awesome families that are already with the dog stop with a single dog, and they keep thinking they need another dog, but they don't really know what the solution is for their job or, business travel or whatever that looks like. And I have to tell you, my absolute, I don't know why I'm such a nerd about it, is I love the grooming component, because there are so many dogs that have bangs now, truly have bangs. And if you don't cut their bangs, they can't see.
That's right.
So there's the dynamic of we're like the Aveda salon for these dogs, is they book their 6-month follow-up grooming appointment because they literally can't go past 6 months. They start getting mad at the doodles and the poodles and the cutie patooties that look so much cuter with a puppy cut, or the true poodles that have like their full standard, even if they're spayed or neutered, and they have the little bells around their paws. And I mean, I just get such a kick out of it. And, you know, I know that my job is the most important in some ways, because I am value engineering their metrics, right? Their fixed costs, their debt service. And the more that my franchisees are profitable and love the business, which they almost always love it, because I mean, come on, you can go up to a mayor of a city with your dog stop shirt on and they're like, oh, here's a picture of my doodle, And so it's just what an advantage to work in a business where people like talking about the business, And I think the good example is like, would you buy a dumpster business? If it made money. I think that's a standard, kind of question people ask future franchisees. And some people just jump and say, of course I would, but are they going to wear the logo to their corporate office? It's like I wear the logo to Home Depot and bring my Boston Terrier and I get tackled. You know what I mean? Like, that it never gets old. It never gets old to talk about the health and well-being of dogs and what an absolute treasure they are in our lives. And we just, the term, we don't deserve dogs. We don't deserve animals in general. And I think that the dogs are just so human-like. I mean, they're, it's just they learn, they watch, they you can teach them tricks. You can, you know what I mean? It's just like, wow, it's such an impact. And so, yeah, I do have a lot of passion about the franchisees making an impact, community to community, adoption being a focus, but that we don't discriminate at the dog stop. There are a lot of people in this industry that have boarding facilities and things like that that are worried about pit bulls. They're worried about behavioral issues.
Mhm.
I think people forget that the dog feels your tension on the leash. The dog feels your anxious nature, because you have a story. They barked at one other type of dog and now they hate all dogs, or they a guy with a hat, right? It's like they come to the dog stop and it's like they have friends in two seconds, right? And the pet parent comes back in to pick them up and they're like, I watched your webcams. I cannot believe my dog, is so happy. He
Aw.
hates dogs. And it's like, well, he's leash reactive, but we don't have leashes. He gets to be a dog.
Aw.
So what a just a put the dog before the dollar kind of scenario, and the money comes, and it's just such a rewarding business, and the franchisees all agree. Employees are your biggest nightmare, but that's every business. At least we're doing something fun, right? At least
Mhm.
you're getting to play with dogs. So you have a better shot of having long-term employees in this industry. And it'll be 25 years next year that I've been in just dog care and pet care. And man, I just smile, thousands of dogs per location that I open. It's so worth it.
It's such a blessing.
Yeah.
It's like you're so passionate about it. And you're
I don't know
speaking
how you can't be, right? Like it's such a crazy thing that I was part of this, growing this into something where it used to just be vets and country kennels and, you know, the zoning meetings, every zoning meeting, somebody without fail will ask my franchisee, but won't the dogs bark? It's like I and I'm like, I want to say, because it's just I know well, right? I was like, well, here's hoping. That means they're having fun.
That's right. That's right.
for our listeners who are just as passionate about dogs and maybe starting a business or wanting to get involved, how can we reach you?
Dogstop.com, and we have our franchise page. I have a franchise development person that's lovely, and I get involved. Jesse, the founder, gets involved. We're still small enough that we have the luxury of all of us still being decision makers, and I look forward to the day where we have more multi-unit owners. We have just natural second, third openings. I already have like 4 or 5 people doing that, and I just feel like that's just they get to use their knowledge on the first zoning project and give advice to other franchisees not to worry about it, and that it's going to be okay, and they're just doing their job over at the city, those types of conversations and the panels and I mean, I remember that very early in my career thinking, man, franchising is so super special because you also get to join a group of people that have all the same care and want to win. And I think that's often lost on the IFA side sometimes, about how cool is it that you get to go into a business as a franchisee and you have 10 people that have been open 5 years longer, or you know what I mean? They've repressed as much as they remember, and but they still stop to talk to them and they're buddies, and then you go to the conference and you see them all sitting together and you're just like, ding, you're so happy about the community. And so I really am, that's another thing I feel really strong about, and that I think I'm really good at, is connecting the right franchisees, personality, time in their life. Like I'm really fortunate. I have a bunch of 30 something franchisees, and I'm so proud of them because they're not waiting until they're 50 to start creating a new life for themselves so they can quit their corporate job. Whereas if you wait till you're 50, and I am picking on myself a little bit, even being 50 now, is it's not too late, but my bones creak a little bit more now and running around after dogs. It's like if you can get in at a 30, and you qualify for a $1.2 million and you have an amazing degree and you are working and make a high earner already at that age, you can actually qualify for an SBA loan to buy this business and keep it a good management team, manage the manager, not have to be fully absentee, but also still be able to keep your income and not worry as much about the ramp up years. So I just the stuff I'm seeing going into shopping centers, because of all of the big box retailers going out of business, the looks we're getting from, national tenant. I mean, it's just such we used to only be able to go to industrial. You had to be 10 million miles behind the main road or any residential. And it's like now they're like, oh no, you're going to bring 40 or 50 dogs to our center every day.
Yep.
And so I am just loving, like the Pep Boys and those kind of groups that are going out of business or, scaling down. There's a lot there for us nationally for the dog stop.
There really is. It's amazing what's happened in the last 3 or 4 years since COVID and more places being available, buildings being available. Ladies, we're at the top of the hour.
Wow, time
What in the
flies.
world happened here?
I enjoyed it tremendously, and I really love that you guys leaned into what you're seeing from me. And I'm always a phone call away, a LinkedIn message away to help someone looking for a job and breaking into franchising. That's something that I really enjoy as well, being creative about it and just flat out telling people, take the job.
Take the job. Just take it.
Don't hesitate to put yourself out there. If someone is seeing something in you and you haven't done it before, I didn't have any real estate experience when I started this, and look at me now.
Look at me now.
As Malcolm Gladwell says, the outliers, it's like you do something for 10,000 hours, man, you get it.
You're going to figure it out. Thank you, Megan, for joining us today and sharing your heart and inspiring others. Tracy, I'm going to put it over to you to do a wrap up for us. We learned a lot in this session. So what are your takeaways?
Well, Megan, first of all, I find you to be so joyous. Like your energy, it just really emanates. And I really appreciate that. For me, the big takeaway, Rebecca, today, I believe is, what you were talking about, Megan, about customer service and waste. But let me tell you why. I think that I've always thought of customer service in one capacity and waste in one capacity. As a matter of fact, the first time you said waste, I already in my head went to sustainability, but you actually coupled that with time, right? And wasting so many people's time and so many emails and reply all, and the whole customer service thing, you also went very many levels deeper. And you've got me thinking about customer service and waste on so many dimensions that I wasn't really thinking about before. So I really appreciate that. That's my big takeaway from this conversation.
Yeah.
I hope everybody thinks about it because the world is so different now, but also we're still humans and you want to feel like you got to the answer and you got to the solution and you don't want to overthink it, but you also want to rush things. Because there's precedent that you create in franchising with franchisees. So it's hard to say that there's one way to do it perfect. There is no perfect in the world. But I think that mindset of like, okay, if I keep replying all instead of answering the question, how does that make me look to a franchisee that I don't have the answer, right? So I think I really appreciate your comments because I take that very seriously.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you so much.
Tickle in my throat here. Thank you, Megan, for joining us today. And thank you to our listeners for joining us today on the Franchise Woman podcast, where passion and purpose collide, profits are made, and relationships forged. Make sure to comment, share, like Megan Allen's interview today. And of course, we'll see you next week on another episode.
Great time, ladies. Thank you.